Hi, this is Ron, the Easy ABS Repair Guy. Today we have a video for you that is a departure from anything we've done before. I have worked in and around supporting the greenhouse industry for many years and have always wanted to build a hydroponic greenhouse. I'm starting on this project to showcase how my Easy ABS repair kits can help to build the components and make the job a lot easier. I have a system that works well, and I'm glad to share with you what I've learned in creating my successful greenhouse operation. I hope you enjoy the video. I had an existing greenhouse that was there when we bought our acreage. It was wood framed with old glass windows and in bad shape. So we tore it down, leveled, and compacted the base. I purchased a 10-foot by 20-foot steel framed greenhouse and laid down a treated timber 8-inch by 6-inch base with a center aisle. I screwed down the steel tubular frame with electrical EMT straps. We put on the fabric outer skin and screwed a treated 2x4 around the perimeter to secure it to the timber base. On the left side of the entrance, I dug a hole 24 inches deep and 6 feet long between the timbers and put in a treated plywood box. This box holds 4 100-liter storage tubs level with the timbers. These tubs will be my nutrient wells. I will pump the hydroponic nutrient solution up to the growing tubes where it will gravity flow back to the wells. I built a 3-foot by 8-foot starting bed with 6-inch sides out of treated 2x6 and plywood. I then cut a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of 1/8-inch ABS sheet to fit into the bottom of the starting bed. I marked out and drilled a level control hole and a drain hole. I used an 1.5-inch tailpiece fitting for the level control. This is the fitting you can find under any sink in your home. The fitting has a tailpiece that connects to the underside of a sink drain and fits into the fitting with a locking nut. I installed the fitting with the adjustable nut facing up and slid in the tailpiece. The level of the tray is adjusted by moving the tailpiece up and down and tightening the lock nut. The fitting was welded into the hole in the base with our Easy ABS repair resin. I smoothed out the resin with my finger using a rubber glove. I also welded an 1.5-inch ABS coupling from the bottom side of the sheet so the drain was flush on the top side of the sheet. I put a 1-inch by 3/4-inch strip around the perimeter of the bottom of the tray to slope the bottom to the drain. I laid in the bottom of the tray and put in 2 screws on each side of the drain hole. I used our Easy ABS repair resin to cover the screw heads and seal the base. I cut 6-inch pieces of a 1/8-inch ABS sheet and screwed them to the sides of the tray. I used Easy ABS repair resin to weld and seal all of the joints in the tray to make a waterproof tray 3 feet by 8 feet and 6 inches deep. I found that the tray was about twice what I needed and would recommend a 3-foot by 4-foot growing tray. I built triangular wooden frames and installed them onto the timbers in the greenhouse. I spaced them evenly at about 36 inches to center. I then cut sheets of 2-inch square welded steel mesh and screwed them to the frames. I left a 48-inch section where I made the frames vertical and continued them to the peak of the greenhouse. This gave me a 40-inch by 1/2-inch timber frame for grape plants, which will be grown in the soil and not with hydroponics. I built a jig in the shop to hold the 3-inch ABS pipes I will be using for growing tubes. The tubes were cut to length to fit horizontally on the meshed frames in the greenhouse. I glued an end cap on one end of the pipe and a threaded cleanout on the other so that I can open up the tube to clean when needed. Use regular ABS cement to glue these fittings. I put a strip of 1.5-inch masking tape down the pipe from end to end. I then marked out the hole spacing on the tape. I cut a 1 7/8-inch hole with a hole saw on my marks. These holes range from 8-inch spacing for most plants to 12 to 18-inch spacings for melons and tomatoes. The holes in the growing tubes are 1 7/8-inch in diameter to fit the hydroponic net cups which are available on Amazon. Seeds are soaked in the nutrient solution and when sprouted are put into 1-inch media cubes. When the plants are at the 2-leaf stage, simply put the cubes into a net cup and the net cup fits perfectly in the 1 7/8-inch holes in the growing tubes. It took a lot of experimentation to control levels. I started by using a plastic hose between the tubes, thinking that I control the level by turning the 90-degree fitting up and down. This worked, but was not consistent enough. I eventually found a method which worked well. I will show you this method rather than all of the others I tried that didn't work. I also found the tomatoes and melons had a very large root mass and actually plugged up the pipes. I recommend using 6-inch ABS pipes for tomatoes and melons. The growing tubes will fill from one end and drain from the other. The nutrient solution will be pumped from the reservoir to the top tube and will drain to the tube directly below it. So the water flow is a zigzag from top to bottom with the return to the reservoir in the bottom tube. The tubes are mounted on an angled rack to allow more tubes in a limited amount of floor space and still give the plants maximum height to grow. To make the level controlled drain, I glued a 3¼ inch piece of 1½ inch ABS pipe into a 90-degree ABS fitting and glued a 3/4 inch threaded fitting into the other side of the 90-degree fitting. When inserted into the bottom of the growing tube with the 3-inch pipe stub inside the growing tube, the stub is about 1/2 inch below the top of the tube. The nutrient solution fills the growing tube and reaches the level of the stub, overflowing into the stub and down to the next tube. There are no adjustments and the level is accurately maintained. Using the top hole on the drain end of the tube, I made a hole through the bottom of the pipe. I then used easy ABS repair resin to weld the assembly into the bottom hole with the stub of the pipe inside facing up towards the top hole. The stub is about 1/2 inch down from the top hole. As the water level in the tubes reach the top of the stub, the water will cascade into the drain and maintain the proper level in the tubes. The size of the 1½ inch drain stub allows a high volume of water to cascade into the next tube. This prevents the water from backing up and overflowing. After many tries, this is the method that solved the flow issues. I drilled and tapped a 1/2 inch national pipe thread in the same end of all of the growing tubes and installed a 1/2 inch tubing fitting. This was tubed to a drain manifold with separate drain valves for each tube. These drains are used to fully drain the tubes. The starting tray drain system was set up with a separate valve for each nutrient solution reservoir tub. The far left drain also went up and connected with the starting tray level pipe. The starting tray main drain is controlled by an RV-type slider valve. This setup will allow the level control or main drain to be routed back to any or all of the reservoir tubs. The main nutrient solution pumping manifold is set up to pump from each reservoir tub to any of the 4 sets of growing tubes. Each pump has a return valve to allow a portion of the pump output to be returned to the reservoir. There is also a valve to fill the growing tray and another valve to drain the selected reservoir to a hose when a new nutrient batch is required. There are 3 racks of growing tubes and 1 4-foot area where grapes are grown in dirt. Each of these 4 areas has a 1/2-inch tube from the pump manifold to the top tube in each area, and a pipe with 1/8-inch holes to evenly distribute the nutrient solution to the grapes. The nutrient solution gravity drains in a zigzag pattern through the tubes in each area and drains back to the reservoir tub with a 1-inch pipe. To start a new crop, seeds are soaked in the nutrient solution and when sprouted are put into 1-inch media cubes. I took a section of the 2-inch welded steel mesh I used to back the growing tubes and bent 2 opposing sides down. This made a nice stand to put the mesh cups into prior to fitting into the growing tubes. When the plants are at the 2-leaf stage, simply put the cubes into a net cup and the net cup fits into the 1 7/8 holes drilled in the growing tubes. Here are shots of the growing tubes in production. I installed knotted ropes for some of the climbing tomatoes and tomato baskets on the bush varieties. I also used 12-inch widths of the 2-inch welded steel mesh to make trays to hold the melons. I hope you have found this video informative. If so, please like my channel. If you subscribe, you will be notified when I post more videos. I am in production of a detailed set of plans on how this greenhouse was set up and the many lessons learned. If you're interested, please email me from the website contact page and I can send you the information.